Hi, my name is Andy Howard. I'm founder and managing director of Howard & Associates, which is a consulting company that helps organizations implement video communications, primarily video conferencing and video streaming. And so today we'll be talking about how to integrate those worlds as well as unified communications. I have my distinguished panel here. We've got Scott Grizzle from IBM, Stephen Condon from Hive, Simon Ball from West, and Dan Sweeney from LinkedIn. So let me just give a quick overview of myself. I've been involved in streaming media since 1999. I originally worked for a company called Cashflow, which became Blue Coat Systems, who some of you might be familiar with. They still sell caching and security appliances in the enterprise. Then I worked for VBrick Systems for a number of years. VBrick's an enterprise streaming play as well. About 8 years ago now, I think I broke off and started my own consulting company. So the idea was to help organizations that are having, struggling to figure out how all this works together to help them define their requirements before they go talk to vendors and then help them along the whole implementation, vendor selection, implementation phases. So I've got a number of great clients and very happy with that, how that's going. So again, the topic here is integrating streaming, video conferencing, and unified communications. Why would you want to do that? And there's a few main points I think that are most important. First, you want to be able to leverage your existing investments. So a lot of companies have video conferencing rooms deployed at all their locations. You want to be able to bring remote presenters into the session. It's very easy to do that with your existing investments. So that's the second point, is being able to bring presenters from multiple locations. And also it allows for flexibility. So if the CEO needs to fly to London for a last minute and he's supposed to give the town hall for the company, it allows you to quickly change the venue of where the presentation is happening from and go from there. So this is just sort of a quick reference slide that I tend to use about the whole live streaming process. So the video conferencing piece really comes in from a video source. So, in some cases you have a camera hooked up to an encoder right from here, and we're streaming this session out actually on streamingmedia.com right now. A lot of times you'll use an encoder to a decoder to get the content back to a production facility. You can use video conferencing equipment, you can use Skype for Business, you can use Zoom. Anything to allow you to get the content back to a central production facility. And then from there, you do your production, kind of like what these guys are doing right here. Run it back through an encoder and then send it out, whether you're going to multicast it on a local area network or use caching servers or distribution servers to distribute unicast locally, and then out to a CDN for distribution to the internet. So that's kind of like sets the structure for what we're going to talk about, and then I'll let these gentlemen really give the insights into what they see in their different worlds. So let's start from here. Scott, you want to start us off? Just give us a quick overview of yourself, what IBM does, and then then we'll go into specific questions.
Yeah, I'm Scott Grizzle. I'm a senior sales engineer for IBM Cloud Video, Watson Media. Been in the industry 20 years, from all things from engineering to production, business development, different things. My role in IBM is really to, problem solve, work with customers, find unique workflows that what they need, from AI to video enrichment to just creating a complete new workflow that will work in their infrastructure.
Good, Stephen.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Steve Condon with Hive Streaming. I too have been involved in this industry for a lot of years, back late 90s when streaming media had their first conference and we had people like Mark Cuban up on this panel. But
Bill Gates.
that was a while back. That was a while back. Unlike Scott, I haven't jumped around into different fields of this area. I've been involved in marketing the whole time. Currently working for Hive Streaming, and we are a niche product that does video distribution within the enterprise. So we're a peering-based solution, one stream into each subnet, and then the peering software takes over to enable everyone within that subnet to view the one stream rather than pulling their own unicast stream. So that's Hive streaming. Lots of interesting things we see going on at the moment. Video utilization within the enterprise is exploding, and it has been climbing for a lot of years, but I think our friends at Microsoft, what they're doing in order to facilitate making video publishing easier, the importance of transparency within the organization and open communications is also pushing a lot of video at this time. And the tools that are around to make it easier for everyone to publish video and participate in that is really all coming together at the moment, where we're seeing the adoption just incredible growth, especially over the past 12 months, from our perspective anyway. And we're mostly involved in the live video distribution, but it's very exciting times at the moment. We've seen steady growth year after year for a number of years, but I think at the moment the growth in the last 12 months has been really something exceptional.
Hi, I'm Simon Ball. I'm SVP of Product at West Digital Media Solutions. I too am an old sea dog of the industry. I started off my career in broadcast television, actually, way back, and transitioned to internet broadcasting in around 2000. And since then worked in streaming for the last 20 years under a whole series of different owners, most recently West. We have took the assets from NASDAQ, where I worked as well, their webcasting, the assets from West Unified Communications streaming components, and actually just recently bought a company called InExpo that have a great streaming product. And we're in the process of combining the best of breed of all of those technologies into the de facto one going forward. It's interesting actually because we've been integrating into video conferencing for many years. It's not really sort of a new phenomenon as such. Back in the day when it was literally plugging in cables and taking it out the back of a video conferencing into an encoder, in the last 3 or 4 years, actually using digital MCUs to connect seamlessly. So our customers can actually make that connection, create the webcast, provision the video conferencing, and have multi speakers, to now we're actually doing it in the interface itself, having the CNN type video experience within the InExpo Studio platform, and still being able to connect to a SIP connection and a dial-up. So it's not a new thing, but what I think has really changed in recent years is the technology behind the quality of the cameras, the quality of the video imagery. The old days of having to sacrifice video quality for low latency in the original sort of video conferencing days is a thing of the past. Super high quality, super low latencies, and in fact, there's a plethora of companies out there that are doing video conferencing entirely software based, which lends itself for even deeper integration. So it's exciting times, and certainly in embracing that sort of acquisition quality. In our organization, really, use cases change, and I think it's the use case that you've always got to focus on. If you do have multiple presenters in multiple locations, video conferencing can be an easy solution to use that, provided you've got the internal expertise.
Right,
Dan.
So Dan is
quickly
our
making notes.
lone end user on the panel. So
Yeah, and I've worked with all these companies and all these, all their products. I actually started my streaming many years ago right over here, Huntington Beach. I used to work for a company that did a number of streaming cameras for surfing cameras here and in Hawaii. And then we sort of rolled that into live streaming and doing events. Before it was just a single camera, security camera, going to a Windows Media Encoder and a dodgy DSL link normally, and people would tune in and watch to see whether they should be out there surfing or not. And so more recently, complete shift into the corporate side of things with LinkedIn. I came into LinkedIn to introduce an internal streaming delivery platform, which ended up, went through a number of options. West ended up being the top one for us. And we use some of the features you talked about, we actually don't take full advantage of. We tend to actually mix it all down more like this diagram into a broadcast feed and then send it up to West interface. But technically, we can bring in VC right into their interface. And what we've seen most recently is the shift from an IT team or a media team, and really, we literally are coming together at LinkedIn to be able to work on the same product because, as you mentioned, the rooms already have a lot of the technology in there. So right now we're in a mode where we have VC cameras in a room and also broadcast cameras, but we're getting to a point where we'll probably get closer to the broadcast camera side of things, start using backhaul to really get our content around. But there are use cases, like you say, when the CEO travels to Dublin or wherever they may go, you can, in a pinch, throw them up on VC, integrate that. The quality is not the same, but it's really, the delta is not, it's not a huge delta between the two.
So you're saying you prefer, so even though there's video conferencing in the room, sometimes you'll bring a camera like here and an encoder and send it back that way?
Yeah, so for our main use case for this topic, so what we do at LinkedIn is we do internal events as well as all the external events. We're in shows, and we have a series of marketing shows and things that we do from studios. But for this topic, our focus would really be on the company all hands, which we do every 2 weeks, which is our heaviest use of VC. So we're bringing in all, or as many people as are awake are watching the stream, and then we're bringing in other offices to bring into the broadcast. So we'll literally take a feed from New York, and it's usually VC right now. So Cisco VC units in all the locations, and then we just decode back at base in Sunnyvale or Mountain View. The one difference, we don't have 20 different codecs bringing everything in. We just switch everything up in the cloud in the bridge. So in the Cisco bridge was where there's sort of a sub-show being cut up there to decide what's going to come into our meeting.
You use cameras to control the quality, the production value, right? Is that?
Yes. So we have broadcast facilities that are built up to broadcast standards. And then, like I say, there's a sort of separate layer because those rooms may be used for broadcast or for a large event, but that takes 20 people to run. When it's a DIY mode, we have rooms of a similar size where you can just come in, hit a Crestron panel, and go into VC mode, and you're going to get 90% of the quality that you need out of that.
Okay. So Stephen pointed out that, the growth in this industry, especially now, as people are really, I think, starting to realize, the impact that doing live events have for their organizations. So, why don't we talk about some of your experiences and how people scaled up? Because I think, integrating with your unified communications and your video conferencing is important for that. But, what kind of growth rates do you see? In some of the clients I've worked with, it literally goes from 0 to they're doing, 10, 20 events a week. And that's a very different thing from, when you're spending all this time planning for one event that you have to go out to now I have to do 20 this week. How am I going to be able to manage this? And I think that's how, the being able to integrate and leverage some of your current investments is a big part of that. But can you touch on that a little bit?
Yeah, we have several customers who, they're doing, like you said, 30 events a week. There's some are pre-canned and other are actually pure live. They're able to use the Crestron, like Dan mentioned, and connect with APIs and do different resources. Again, then we can offer the authentication, security, and a massive distribution where we can keep everything in line. And that kind of gives them the best of both worlds, so they can use the cameras in the rooms, they can use the VCUs, then export those to our platform and distribute out. Plus give it who watched and things like that. But again, when they started expanding, they want these extra features. They want to be able to have people chat, communicate, polls, real-time data coming through. Some places I have one customer who actually wants certain other key people to speak at different times. They have a key officer speaking. Now you have other people who want to bring questions in. So a miniature two-way communication / mass distribution too. So we're seeing different use cases all the time.
Interesting.
I'll just give one data point here on behalf of Dan's parent company, but I think Chris Knowlton, who's here at the conference somewhere, shared with us
He'll be doing the next session after this.
Well, I may steal some of his thunder, but I think that Microsoft internally has gone from 1,300 video events a month, I think, to up close to 3,000 a month at the moment. So in terms of video broadcasts every month internally. And I'm not sure if that's both internal and external, but events that they're conducting has gone from 1,300 to close to 3,000. And I think that's just, everyone talks about the democratization of video, and I think just the people who are coming through the workforce now are just so much more used to video, and they want to be able to view video on their desktop rather than gather in some sort of town hall arrangement. And that in itself just makes it so much easier to consume and produce for, right? Yeah. So it really is, I think, a technology that more and more employees are demanding, and you know, and it's easier as well, so it's being delivered.
Well, to your point, like a lot of corporations, you know, in education, a lot of people are visual learners. So if you have a key meeting coming through, do you want them just to read an email, or do you want to see the facial expressions of the person relaying that message? And that's where video is so powerful, is you can get the emotions behind the meanings. So maybe some guy's cracking a joke. Well, the joke doesn't come across properly in the email versus now, you know, you actually see it real life. That's the, you know, that's why everything's using it, is you can get more people involved, more people using the systems. So that's what's great. You have robust systems like Microsoft 3000 event today, or, you know, it just makes sense.
Yeah, and I think it's people, so much, communication is so much more transparent when it's video, right? It's so much more convincing. Yeah. And also, you know, the tools now, I mean, everyone obviously embracing UC collaboration tools. Well, most of those UC collaboration tools are now building in video components to it as well. So, you know, why not talk to my team via video? I know, you know, my team's based back in Stockholm. We deal with Stockholm. We've got to constantly tell ourselves, you know, we need to use video to communicate because we don't have that much opportunity to communicate face to face. It's a little rough in the morning, some mornings when most of my calls with Stockholm are at 6:30 or 7 o'clock in the morning, and I don't have time to have a shower beforehand, but still.
It's mandatory in our team. It's mandatory to be on video for calls, and I actually think it's become so ubiquitous now that we're kind of past that. It's not a technology challenge anymore, because there is literally so many ways you can connect. I could literally connect from my iPhone right now into a video stream. So there's no longer that barrier to technology, and the quality is going to be pretty good still. I think that the new challenge of the future is, and what we're hearing from our customers more so now than ever, is picking the right tool for the right use case. Correct. And they want to. The challenge is directing the person that wants, you know, to have a collaborative meeting, not to engage the full production crew and try and do it as a broadcast, but to do it as a collaboration, or in reverse, that the person that wants, you know, to have a high production value has chosen to use a desktop camera plugin, and clearly it's not going to work. And so, driving people to understand the right use case for the right application and the right messaging that they want to convey, I think, is now the challenge that we're in. Video is, and the use of it and technology has become incredibly ubiquitous, and we're all much more used to it.
And the title of this presentation, Getting Rid of Silos, you know, I think very much so in the 70s and in the last decade. In the last decade, there was very much a, you know, buying end-to-end solutions, right? I want one throat to choke. I want something to work from, you know, from the lens to the screen, and I want the solution in between. You go to vendors for those end-to-end solutions. Well, now not so much anymore. I mean, I think everyone knows that. Okay, I want a webcasting platform, and I need to use that webcasting for externally, but I don't want that webcasting platform to cover everything end to end. I want the tools around the email, the reminders, all that sort of stuff, but I need that to integrate with my other components that I use for other things as well. And we find that with, you know, we're a delivery component, right? We just do the delivery. We're not doing the video management platform or whatever, so we integrate with, you know, whether it's Microsoft Teams and Stream, or whether it's Bright Cove, or whether it's West, or whether it's, we'll integrate with all of them to help them deliver the video through the enterprise. We're not trying to package something up for an end-to-end solution.
But I think there are some, maybe to contradict you slightly, how does something like Teams or Office 365 that is trying to capture all those, and it's hard to do all those things well, right? So as you mentioned earlier, Microsoft purchased LinkedIn a couple years ago. We use Microsoft Teams Broadcast now next to a couple other solutions that we have, including West. But we struggle with the same thing where there are almost too many choices. And so as the media team, we try and steer people to the right answer. You could talk to somebody over Blue Jeans, you could talk to somebody over Teams. Those are sort of our two ways to do it. Well, you could use Blue Jeans Primetime if you wanted to stream it, or you could look at Zoom, or we could do it over West or Intercall, and sort of all these different options. And part of our role is to sort of traffic cop that and figure out what the priority is for the company, so that we know when to bring in broadcast and what platform to put it on. And so that's one of the things that we struggle as an end user group, trying to keep up with okay, so West has this, and then this other platform has this. What features do we need, and how do we pick and choose between them? And I don't know if you run across that in terms of, do you feel that people are not trying to find that be-all, end-all because it's not realistic?
Yeah, I don't think it is as realistic anymore, and I think what you want to do is work with proven integrations and companies that know how to work together to bring the optimized solutions, and you know, it's a world of APIs, right? So you want to be able to pick the best point solution for the problem you're trying to solve, and be able to integrate that with the user management systems and whatever else, whatever other components of the value chain that are depicted up there. You know, I think picking best of breed these days, it's moving towards more the best of breed than individual end-to-end solutions. You know, even Microsoft with Teams and Stream, they will have a selection in there for your external encoding you want to use, for your ECDN, which we're one of the components of. It's a check a box on there. So they've opened it up to plug in best of breed solutions for the different components as well.
Yeah, and I think to go back to the Microsoft example, you know, for their live streaming solution, they tried to use Skype for Business Broadcast, which is a good solution for certain use cases, but it doesn't cover nearly all the use cases that we're talking about, or even that you were talking about, Dan, right? So now with the live functionality that they brought into Stream, they're letting people use, you know, the production facilities and all the other stuff that they already have as the input to that solution, just because it makes sense, I think. You know, and they still have Skype for Media Broadcast, and there's, you know, that'll still work for certain use cases.
Yeah, I think the challenge for organizations is at the end of the day, it's still a tool, right? You can have the best power drill in the world, doesn't make you any better at putting up a shelf. You know, it's a tool, and so I think where you play in that arena is, you know, compete with those companies that have tools, you complement them. Mm-hmm. And so adding a level of professionalism, an overlay of professional services and service-orientated approach allows you to sort of play in that arena as well. Because what companies need is expertise to be able to shape that message, not necessarily the actual sort of nuts and bolts itself.
Yeah, I mean, LinkedIn's lucky because we have a dedicated media team. We sit within the engineering org. We are very well connected to the VC or the Unified Communications people, so we come at it from an engineering standpoint, but also production. But it certainly was my sense is that not a lot. Microsoft happens to have a similar group, but a lot of companies don't. There'll be an IT team, so less focused perhaps on production. So they may know from a nuts and bolts or a power drill standpoint the way to do it, but you still need someone to manage that. And so that's something. So you're saying West has the production services piece in particular?
Yeah, exactly. It's the overlay of all the sort of services, whether it's partnerships with ECDNs that you can bring to the fray, whether it's production services, whether it's ability to output to social media as well as to your internal SharePoint site, or embrace streams as part of your ecosystem. I think it's important that you don't you embrace all of those components and work with them, because that's where you add value to your customers as a provider, and not try and sort of compete or put a Chinese wall around what you do. I think it's very important. And as a consultant, right? That's you're gonna.
Yeah, exactly. That help piece together the different pieces of the solution. That's predominantly what we do, and make sure that it all plays well together. And yeah, but like Stephen said, you can, if you, the problem with trying to boil up an end-to-end solution is that if you want to change that solution, you need to change the whole thing.
Yeah.
So whereas if you sort of break it into best of breed pieces, if there's some brand new encoding technology that you want to implement, you simply replace the encoders and everything else stays the same. Your workflow all stays the same. So
Yeah, some of our larger customers, they have that, the a la carte approach. Like, like Dan mentioned, the restaurants, you go through, you pick what you want. I want to use this video camera with this route, the distribution, or I need to do a two-way call. So yeah, it's very common. You see customers out there because there is no one solution as 100% for all, one thing for everything. So it's, why not find, the best solutions you have and, build a perfect solution for what you need to have done.
right.
Yeah.
Let me take a pause here and see if there's any questions from the audience. I'll save a couple minutes at the end too, but I wanted to see if anybody had anything now.
When you're bridging into an MCU and out to the encoders, what kind of protocol are you using and network stuff?
So the question is, if you're bridging, taking a video call into a bridge and then taking the output of that into an encoder, what kind of technologies are you going to use? I'll take.
Like network setup, like using SRT and stuff.
Yeah, I mean, the goodness is that in most cases that's already taken care of, right? The video conferencing has already been put into place. So there's kind of two ways you can do it. You can go into a bridge and take, literally take a wire out of that and plug it into an encoder, or you can do a digital MCU where it basically turns it from a video conference into a stream digitally, and then you can send it out from there. But those are kind of the two main ways, and actually both of them are very effective. But I don't know if anybody else had anything else they wanted to.
I mean, a common use case is just enabling a customer to provision a SIP call dial straight into your platform. We do that all the time. But we also have MCU capabilities. We've used the Video as an MCU plugin.
Okay.
PECSIP is a pretty robust open API architecture.
works with everything.
And works with everything.
Almost everything.
Blue Jeans, we resell at West, and so that has those capabilities as well. There's a number of solutions out there. You just making that connection automated and ensuring that you have a user interface that integrates into your platform is really, pick a provider that does that for you.
Yeah, I think the question more specifically along what protocols are you using to do that. Like, I'm very familiar with how to bridge and do that sort of thing. What I'm trying to do is automate a stream from anywhere from VC systems around a company. So call in using Cisco, it's going to go into CMS and it's going to be RTP out. Now, how do you automate that through APIs? And then also, has anybody been doing the CMS streaming through like RTP and encoders? Are you seeing any issues with that, et cetera? There's already like a workflow doing that. Vbridge, that's much different.
With our InExpo platform, we've embraced WebRTC as our presenter controller, right? So we dial in, it's a WebSocket connection, super low latency, and you don't need the MCU. You can dial straight into the presenter view and switch it and give you that MCU, give that CNN news feed feel to it with live video and overlays. And it works better for us to control that switching from a presenter perspective when your use case is creating a piece of TV-like content that you want to put online. So CNN, two people together, lower thirds, polling, etc. And rather than use VCU as the MCU, like the switching capability, we switch in the platform to give us greater control, but can have end participants dial in using a SIP connection, if that makes sense.
What are you address latency? Problem with interactive application is that it has to be short latency, whereas some of the VCN solutions that I've seen are, tens of seconds of delay. When do you see it stopping to be interactive and starting to be a broadcast?
Well, so that's a great question, because I was going to kind of pose that same question to the panelists. But there's a couple things I would say there. Is one is that typically when you're doing a large-scale broadcast, it's mostly a one-way send. So the latency is really not as important. However, so the way that that's been worked around in the past is you say email your questions in ahead of time, or there's a chat window where you can email your questions in, so the latency really doesn't matter there. Now, but if you really wanted to make it interactive, right? Like, so we've got people in the room, but we've also got people that are listening in, over the web. Could we take calls in over video from people remotely?
Yeah.
Yes, we could, but that's where the latency becomes problematic. But it's a problem that's really been solved, in the past. Is that you just, it's kind of like when you hear people call into the radio station, they're like, turn your radio down, because you're getting the feed after you're actually talking, your question in. It's the same thing. The latency doesn't really matter from the questioner to here. It matters from here going out.
Right, but the ability to incorporate live content into the broadcast kind of goes away if there's a 30-second delay.
Yeah, right.
Like you can have those that are listening and those that are participating and
Yeah.
there's different groups.
Correct.
Yeah, and I think that's what we run into is there is that dividing line right now, right? So there's the few to many, and then so the many being able to have them contribute back in and still use a peer delivery system. That's a challenge. I don't necessarily have the answer to it other than we just simply divide it right now.
Yeah, we see the same thing. And you have the people who you can have like interactive communication, like a small group using WebEx, Skype, whatever, all communicate. But that's for that key group on there. Then everybody else is normal broadcast. And really, you start getting like over 100 people to 1,000 people. You don't want everybody to be interactive. You only want that small niche. I have a buddy in the Navy, and they want to have an admiral speak. Then they want some officers to speak. But you don't want every sailor and every news media asking the questions to the admiral at the same time. You just want to have those key people have things staged and come through.
Yeah, there's always got to be a moderator in that
Yeah.
scenario. I mean, as soon as you get it to a certain size, there's got to be some sort of moderation happening.
I just want to add something on your question. In terms of our ECDN solution anyway, we do not add any additional buffering. We take advantage of the buffering region to enable peer-based streaming, but we don't actually touch the video. So we don't add any buffering to the video. But there is inherent buffering that adds some delay, right? So that we can't address that, that inherent buffering.
There's a number of sessions at the show that are talking about that too, and there are some pretty interesting scenarios to get it down from, initially Apple's, kind of said you got to do a 10-second segment, so it made it like a minute, but you can easily get it down to 10 seconds now. And even I just watched a session where they said, using typical CDN, not like a WebRTC or WebSocket or something like that, you can get it down into the 5-second range, which is in line with actually what TV is, actually.
So it's interesting that this group, I would have thought this would have impacted the broadcasting side of, company meetings, that kind of thing. It sounds like there's still
There is impact. It's just that I think we just reacted to it by sort of changing the production, not changing, but establishing production styles. So similarly, our CEO will speak, and we know we've got maybe 5 or 6 external offices that are going to speak. They're all over VC.
Yeah.
Our system is such that the VC unit 0 delay is coming in, and then we switch it like a broadcast, another input. But I can definitely see if we wanted someone sitting at home to be able to contribute to it, we would have to do that same. We'd have to give them something back. And the way we would do it now is we would give them Blue Jeans. So we would tell them to not watch the production, watch the Blue Jeans stream. So I guess you'd have to run some kind of, you're basically running a parallel show.
like a sub-production in WebRTC.
Yeah, sort of a
Yeah.
video mix minus, so they don't see themselves back and things. Yeah.
It's interesting. It actually becomes less of a technical challenge and more of a meeting logistics challenge. How do you manage 1,000 people asking you questions?
Yeah.
It's impossible. Right? So there is a limit to what you could do anyway, which is inhibited not by technology but by just good meeting management practice.
I guess I don't know the product well, but I know that like for example, Blue Jeans, I know, we use Blue Jeans and then there's Blue Jeans Primetime. So Primetime is streaming and then that has an inherent delay. But my understanding is I believe Zoom has something that is, or maybe it's WebRTC, I don't know what they're using. Okay, so then that takes a lot of the latency out of it. So you can basically go from a meeting of 10 to a meeting of 1,000.
We've been experimenting, you know, at the traditional conference call where you queue, you have an operator assisted, you queue the people, they can then come in and ask the question. Doing that in a video environment, so you queue them up and then you switch them through and you create a video. So it's a sort of a managed connection and it's a switched connection into the webcast that gives that sort of greater interactivity.
And also, I guess it goes back to, you know, who are your viewers? How are they watching? Because if you already has a terminal and you can do things, you can do proprietary codecs and like that, you're fine. If you want an every device, well, what codec is going to work for you for every device? Unfortunately, it's HLS in most cases, and a few others out there. Well, HLS by default has the big buffer built in, 3 segments of, 3 seconds each. You can squeeze it down to 1 second each, but you still have the 3 segments, and you just lost your reliability. But there are other codecs out there, and again, it goes back to what can the device support? What are you going to view on? If you have viewing parties, you're going to have 10 monitors around. Yeah, you can go peer-to-peer. You got all kinds of cool stuff. If you need a massive scale, thousand people, again, a big event, you have 40,000 employees, they all have to watch. Or in my case, IBM, 400,000 employees, and they all have to be able to have access to it. You got to be creative on how you build to make reliability. You're a big enough company. You live with the delay because you have a solid, clean stream.
Yeah, so I think just to wrap it up, to me, the latency matters from the video sources to the production, and that's why you see all those sources are all low delay, right? Nothing lower than just plugging the video source right into it. And then from the encoder out, the delay really doesn't matter that much because it's a bunch of people in different offices watching it. If it's off by a little bit, with 2 people sitting next to each other, it doesn't make that much of a difference.
But we do, I must say, we do get confusion. People ping us when we're testing, we're testing Teams broadcast, and they'll say, well, why is this? Why are we? The person next to me is watching it 20 seconds different from our normal platform. So there are questions. Yeah. So there are questions that come up about it. It's just managing that expectation.
Yeah, there can be latency drift on a long event where some people are farther behind than others.
There's a question down
here.
Just
another question?
No.
Just related to what you guys are talking about, with this one-to-many webcasting and this delay, is WebRTC an option to put around?
Yeah. WebRTC is most definitely an option. It only works in certain browsers, as you're probably aware. Safari and Google Chrome are 2 that support WebRTC. But WebRTC video is definitely being utilized more and more. Obviously, Zoom, there are a lot of other video applications. I mean, I think Messenger and Facebook could be WebRTC based.
I think it starts that way. And if it gets big enough to broadcast, it sort of switches over to another delivery.
Yeah, it's WebRTC is growing, and hopefully one day Microsoft will support it. But yeah, it definitely is an option. For us, we have a installed client. We also have a WebRTC product as well.
I think it depends on the scale of the event, largely too, because I went to one of the low delay sessions earlier, and what they were saying is that WebRTC is great if you really need ultra low latency. However, the reason HTTP streaming and adaptive bitrate streaming came about was because it lets you leverage all of the HTTP-based caching of all the CDNs. WebRTC doesn't. So if you're doing 100 people, you can probably manage that, but if you're doing 10,000 people, it's going to be a costly endeavor.
Then you need something like our product
Yeah.
to scale. WebRTC, that's what we do.
Well, can that do it with WebRTC?
Yeah.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay. That's very interesting.
You have a question right here.
So we have a use case where we're looking to be able to connect multiple offices where we'll have multiple speakers. No video conferencing there, so let's assume that. So what is the panel's thoughts on using something like SRT? Have you used it? And you know whether customers that have been using it?
So the question is, SRT is a new streaming protocol. The Hive sort of invented it, but they open sourced it. It's kind of a potential to take over what RTMP used to be. So everybody's encoder, everybody's solution could take RTMP in the past, but people want to move away from that. SRT is supposed to be very resilient and also secure. It's encrypted. So I've seen some customers use it successfully, but I don't know about the rest of the
Yeah, so for us, our ideal world, we're able to plug into the switch or something like that. So if our CEO is going to Dublin and we have enough time, that's what we're actually going to do. We're going to put in a connection through the switch or some similar backhaul technology. After that, we'll go to Hive encoders with SRT enabled. Part of the SRT benefit is some lower latency pieces in there. So if we're doing a backhaul or a scenario from a different location, like a hotel, then we would usually stack those. So if you're talking about different offices, you're basically looking for something to possibly deploy if you don't have VC there. Yeah, I mean, there are Hive in particular, encoders, and the SRT, we use that.
Has used LPN. That solution is very expensive.
Yes.
And it's proprietary. And I think that was probably something that it was before I got into streaming, but it was probably something they implemented at the time when that was the solution, maybe. But now that there's no solutions out there, I think that's costly. And I want to stay away from one vendor solution.
Yeah.
Exactly right, because you want to be, you don't proprietary solutions and inherently have a certain amount of risk to them, and there's a reason why they put it to open source, right? Because they need greater adoption of it. And so I would always stick with something, a commonly used codec or transport mechanism, so that you're not tied into it. Been burnt by that in the past.
Okay, so my final question is, you touched on this a little bit, Simon, so in any sort of webcast event, there's typically a video, so like in this case, it would be a video of the panel, and then there's the contents stream. So, in video conferencing system, you can take those as separate streams. You can do it in a variety of manners, but from the output side, what do you see? What is the trend you're seeing with customers? Is it still, the video and the slides getting synchronized, or are we doing that CNN type broadcast where there's a production staff and they're mixing it all together and it goes to one video stream? I know my preference is strongly to do the one video stream because I think you can do some very unique things. It's a scenario people are familiar with, and it makes the implementation so much less complicated because you don't have to manage all the JPEGs, you don't have to deal with the web servers that support that. But
what we just did recently is we came out with our new slide apparatus, and we really decided to make it so the customers choose their view. You can get the picture-in-picture view, but if you click on the slide, now you have only the slide view. And if you want just a speaker view, you can select. That way you're not forcing the customer to, or the viewer to, see what they want. I mean, they can pick and choose the resize, versus, here's what you get, only you get. I mean,
how are the slides coming through though? Is it a separate video stream?
It's piggyback. It's like a sub carrier.
Oh, okay.
So you have the mainstream coming through, and you have the slides going through, and they're all synced in, and you watch them. Then you just pick your view because you're doing a graphic file. So the graphic is pack,
yeah,
and it's there, and you can pick what view you want.
Right.
Audio stays the same, but to the viewer, it all looks seamless. It's all in player versus sidecar.
Yeah.
I've fallen in love with the InExpo Studio product because it allows you to do that all virtually, right? I can have multiple sources, I can have my slides. I don't need to be sitting in front of a vision mixer. I can do that as a presenter with a bit of skill, a bit of training, and I can cut in lower thirds provided I prepared them in advance, and make that video production high production value in a web service application from any location. I think for me that's the way we solve that problem, and definitely all video, slides cut in, where you need them overlaid, video overlaid with slides. Making it more of a rich experience is the way to go. Depends on your use case, right? If it's in investor relations, you want to make sure that the focus is on the slide. It's, although they should be doing more video, but more sort of, marketing orientated.
Well, I think it lets you control the message too for an executive type environment. But I think I would imagine from your perspective, one video is easier to distribute from your products, right? Yeah.
But it can do both, like your integration with Panopto, because they do slides and video.
Yes.
It supports both. Yeah, I mean, same thing, our highest level ones, broadcast, is what we're looking for, but there is the fact that your viewers may be used to something else. So if most of their Blue Jeans calls are video and slides, and they can pick between them. So you can't please all the people all the time, but we try and be good stewards of the content and really decide when that slide needs to go up, how long it needs to be read for, and get back to that content. So as a production team, we like a single feed.
Yeah, and I tend to tell customers, if you want to use an example, watch like a TED Talk, right? They have a 3-camera setup. There's one like this. Usually the slides are in the back, so you can actually see them if they pan out. There's a tight shot, and then there's a crowd shot, and and you can put together a really nice production for not a lot of money these days, whether it's using like an InExpo thing or just a TriCaster or whatever it is.
Even the top level productions, like you look at an Apple event, we cut in a slides as a separate source, and maybe that's what they're doing back here. If we had more slides, they'd be cutting that in. That's what we happen to do. But if you look at an Apple broadcast lately, they're using their new theater, and they're just taking a shot of the content. Now, it's the kind of slides that they have. They're huge, impactful slides. That's not going to work if you've got an engineer's super detailed formula that you need to get across there. You're going to need that
right.
that
Or
scan
a financial
converter.
statement. Or something.
Right.
Yeah. You had one more question?
Yeah, in the multi-pane, I'll call it view, or you have slides and the main live video, three, that's two separate sources. Those are still video sources? It's not like a JPEG screen?
Well, I think if you're, for us, we have a laptop screen or scan convert, bring it in as another source. But I think if you're like the West interface and perhaps the InExpo, you just preload your slides up there and bring them in.
So you can switch them into the video as part of the web service, or you can have a separate window with the slides, which are basically images that are triggered and called from the server.
Right, but from delivery out to the user, it's still a video stream, it's not a JPEG that's loading into a browser window?
You can do both. So you can have a video stream with a JPEG that's loading, or just a video stream that has the JPEG cut into the video stream, as it were, and overlaid and mixed and picture-in-picture.
And it's all about getting that timing down, because there's some delay built into the video, and trying to match that slide to come in at the right time. Or
Well, you're making the switch in the WebRTC presenter, so super low latency. It doesn't matter. You're creating a live program.
Okay.
And just one last statement on that is, if the content's dynamic, like if you have executives that like to do build slides or animations, things like that, it's really hard to do it with the JPEG thing. And also, if the content changes 5 seconds before the event, then you have to like re-upload the slides and stuff. So that's difficult. Unfortunately, we're out of time. Thanks for all the great questions. Thanks for the panelists for doing a great job. And enjoy the rest of the show. The weather out here, and there's I think at 5 o'clock there is in the expo they're having like a happy hour thing, and then there's another event on the lawn at 6 o'clock, I believe. So enjoy the rest of your time, and thanks. With panelists, we'll stay up here for a few minutes if you want to come up and ask questions.
Thank you, Andy.
Thank you.